All right, welcome to the next episode of the Rap Thought Podcast with Matt and Brandon, where we come up with discussions and rap thoughts on some of your favorite albums or albums you may not have listened to before.
Yeah, right before we get into that, we actually I'm kind of happy for it, but we just got 100 followers on Facebook. So,
oh, wow. Yeah. I did not know that.
I
wasn't aware.
Yeah, we got 100. So, I mean, we're still coming up. It's been a lot of fun. But, I mean, please subscribe to us. Check us out. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Spotify.
Yeah, so follow us on Spotify. Subscribe on Apple. I don't know what you do on Google or Stitcher, but we're on there.
Yeah.
Whether you follow us or subscribe, do it.
Yeah, I'm trying.
Yeah, we release our episodes every Wednesday at 7 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So yeah, you follow us so you stay up to date on all of our episodes. And just to inform our listeners, we may have some new ones. The system that we have for the albums that we discuss is out of a hat, basically. So whatever we review, unless it's a new album, it's picked randomly, and you know, we're not sitting every week like, oh, we need to review this album. It's just whatever comes out that week is what we're doing.
Keep it fair.
Yeah.
Draw from a fair sample and keep it random.
And our samples come from the 80s, 90s, 2000s, and 2010s.
By the luck of the draw, the last couple weeks, even though you guys won't know what we have because we pre-record, we've gotten some 80s the last 2 weeks.
Yep.
So,
which is cool.
I'm excited.
Cool. And we're gonna mix in some new albums in there.
Yeah.
Especially when there's a release that both Brandon and I are really excited about, or we think would make for a good discussions, we'll do that album. And we want to start doing more of the newer artists. And artists that put out albums that we really think we'll enjoy and will make a great podcast, we'll do that.
Yeah. And it's on top of that, because a lot of the albums, some of them have been new for me, some of them have been new for you.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're going to start doing more of the newer artists, because that would definitely be new for the both of us. Mm-hmm. So just kind of getting more.
Mix it up. And just so everyone knows, we're not a review-based podcast. We're not here to tell you that an album is 8 out of 10 or 2 out of 10. We're here to just have discussions and give our thoughts on the album, what we took from it, what we think the artist was trying to portray with their music and with their content. With that said, let's get into this week's episode.
This week, we are doing Straight Outta Compton
by
NWA,
which stands for... I just want to hear you say
niggas with attitude.
Hey.
I like the setup there.
Yeah. For me, I'm gonna say ninjas with attitude.
Okay. I like how Jim was talking about hitters. That's his replacement.
Yeah.
But you can't really say HWA, hitters with attitude. But I like that. It's like I like that replacement. That's cool.
Yeah.
So, that's cool. Cool album. Came out in '88.
Yep.
The year that we were born.
The year that we were born. That's kind of crazy to think about.
Do you remember the day it came out?
No.
August 8th.
See, I wasn't born yet, so
I wasn't either.
I couldn't remember that.
I was almost born. One more month.
Yeah.
And I was here. But yeah, Straight Outta Compton came out August 8th, 1988. When you look at this album cover, you count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people. But if you've seen the movie, you saw the movie, right?
Of course. Yeah.
Solid movie.
Great movie.
Great movie.
That's probably the best hip hop based off of true events movie.
Yeah.
So much better than the Biggie one. The Biggie one was alright, but this one just took it to a new level.
Is it better than 8 Mile?
Oh, yes, because 8 Mile was very loosely based off of Eminem's life. It wasn't about Eminem.
Yeah.
So it's a different... I wouldn't compare them.
Yeah.
It's different.
I think it's 100% better than 8 Mile. This is, as you said, this is definitely one of the best movies based off of a hip-hop group that there is. But anyways, getting back to the cover, I'd always been curious why there's 6 people on the cover, but then there's only 5 people rapping, 5 people in it. And so the members being Eazy-E, Ice Cube, MC Ren, Dr. Dre, DJ Yella. There's another one, Arabian the Prince. And he's on there, and he actually only has credit for one of the songs on the track. And that was Something to Dance To.
At the last one.
Which is the last one. And he doesn't say a whole lot in that album. But he's...
we'll get to that track, but
I can see you doing some dumb shit to that.
You know I'm going to love that one.
But anyways, if you've seen the movie, you know that there was a lot of issues with the group of royalties and everyone getting their fair cut. So Arabian Prince cut out early because of all of that. He was the first one to leave the group. And this actually isn't necessarily their first album that they dropped. No. It's NWA and the Posse, which is often neglected, not ignored, but just forgotten. No one ever references it. But there's 3 tracks from that album that have made it onto Straight Outta Compton.
Gotcha.
Any guesses?
I don't remember.
Panic Zone, 8 Ball, and Dope Man.
Okay.
We're on that track. But yeah, the group was active from 87 to 91. And it's kind of cool, like, there's, I think I talked about this a little bit in the Tupac podcast, but growing up, I avoided all gangster like albums and stuff. I wanted nothing to do with them. And I think it's the stigma to it. I think it got to me as a kid, but growing up in the music in the early 2000s, late 90s, it caught me more. And I was like, oh man, they're just too hardcore. It's hardcore rap. I won't like it. This album isn't quite as hardcore as it is pressed to be. I want to argue. What do you think in terms of all the acclaim? This is gangster.
From our perspective, of today's perspective, looking back at this album, it does make you look back and be like, wow, the government and the FBI really got involved with this album and tried to hinder it. But if we try to understand the times at which this album came out in, yes, there was gangster rap that came out before this album, and there was art that was just as derogatory and had just as much cursing and whatever. But no other album before this was on this level in terms of popularity and exposure.
Yeah.
So I could see how this album would cause controversy and issues with so many people because it hadn't been heard before on that level. No other album was out there like this, like in front of so many people's faces, and how aggressive and crazy it is. But it also makes you think, well, why aren't they doing that for movies?
Right.
Where's the stance against Scarface that came out way before this?
And they talked about that too, because they were saying in an interview, they were talking about how in their music videos, you're going to see more in a cartoon. You're going to see more in Scarface. You're going to see more in The Godfather than you will in their music videos. Yet it got banned from MTV. But then with the ban, they got more hype from that because of that. If you tell someone not to do something, people are, well, why shouldn't I do that? Let me take a look at that.
Right.
So that was pretty interesting. But it kind of, looking into this album, I kind of went in with the interesting perspective of how gangster is this album. And because it's labeled as one of the first gangster rap albums that ever came out, like that started the trend.
Right.
And I was trying to remember what other ones came out around this time that were kind of like it. I mean, there was in terms of like, this album covers a lot of political stuff, being racially profiled.
Right. Well, Ice-T was speaking about that before NWA.
With Colors.
You had some other East Coast rappers. I mean, Karis One and Boogie Down Productions, and
and you also had Public Enemy.
They're along those lines.
Yeah, and so I kind of, as I was saying, like going to this album, like I want to see. My analysis going in was what made this album so gangster. That FBI was like, we're not going to protect you at your shows. We don't support this and stuff like that. So I kind of went in with that mindset.